of my sanity, because in a crazy world like this, if you're not crazy, you're basically crazy, right? So have you seen Invasion of the Body Snatchers? Have you seen They Live? Well, some people wonder, including myself and many others that listen to Leak Project, could that be more science fact than science fiction? Could a clandestine invasion of an extraterrestrial race actually be implemented right now? You know, Cliff High was on the show a few months ago. We were talking about the 5G possibilities, this invasion that he feels is going on right now. So how do we really know? What if they're your next door neighbor? What if you work with them? Would you really know? I mean, do they have some type of like fungus that just latches into your brain? I mean, do they shapeshift? Where are they coming from? Where are they going? And we're going to get really deep into this discussion today. And why do people laugh about it? Why is it so funny to talk about space aliens? And why is it that there seems to be so much soft disclosure, yet when you bring it up, people say, you're crazy, man. You're a conspiracy theorist, man. You're out of your mind. They're demons, man. What do you think about that, Greg? Thanks for coming on the show.
Well, it's a conundrum. There's so many conundrums about this phenomenology. It's mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling. I mean, if you think about it, the Mexican Air Force videotaped with their FLIR cameras, military infrared cameras, objects that were following them that they couldn't see with their eyes, but they put out heat signatures and they tracked along with their aircraft, and maybe they would fly around them. I mean, you just don't get hot spots in the atmosphere flying around jet airplanes. That's really strange. And also, we've had the case that there was the so-called Tic Tacs that our own Air Force released video of. Air Force, Navy, I forget which one. But our military, our DOD, released video of these things from our own gun sight cameras from our pilots. Again, FLIR cameras, most likely because they look black, so that meant they were hot. And they've also had video from the Air Force of the Netherlands. And then you get these strange cases where multiple radars on grounds had sightings of the same objects that were also seen at the same time by airline pilots who talking about this subject as a career ender, basically. And there's just tons of things like the Phoenix lights, the case where in Mexico there were millions, maybe at least hundreds of thousands standing outside, and dozens of things were flying overhead. What were all these? I mean, you know, maybe there's just some very intricate, highly coordinated, synchronized swamp gas dancing up in the skies.
Yeah, let me jump in on that real quick, Greg, because it's definitely swamp gas. That excuse has been used dozens of times. Swamp gas actually reflecting from Venus. And, you know, one of the things, too, that I forgot to mention, folks, and we're going to get into the Sumerian tablets that connect to the gods descending from heaven, the kingship descending from heaven, which is outer space, most likely in reference to that. I think that it's neat, Greg, how you are very good at agriculture. You're very good at, you're a botanist, showing how to grow food off the grid in a very efficient manner. And a lot of people don't know this, but I think this is something really cool. Today's cannabis industry is almost $11 billion in the United States alone. And folks, you can get a piece of this too. If you're seeking a way to break into this lucrative market, check this out. Imagine pushing a button on your cell phone and 6 cannabis plants begin to grow discreetly in a corner of your home. And then this device automatically dispenses nutrients, it optimizes the light, and it even notifies you when it's time to harvest. Well, guess what? You don't have to imagine that anymore because the technology already exists. Check out cashcropusa.com. That's cashcropusa.com. Back to you, Greg.
Well, I do want to make a disclaimer here. Even though I am a contractor and work at NASA, I don't speak for the contractor. I don't speak for NASA. I somewhat speak for Greg Allison as much as the puppet masters allow me to. So
I was waiting for you to say that. I figured you were going to say it after that quick sponsorship break. But, you know, I think it's neat that it's good to get a real face on somebody that actually works with NASA and as a contractor, like you said, because there is a lot of questions out there, you know, and a lot of people really wonder, based upon just the the internet, everything's real on the internet, Greg. And we know this. Everything is real on the internet. Not. So you got to be very careful and very discreet what you believe and what you don't. That's why I like to validate everything with as many forms as possible. So it's good that you're out and talking to us. I think that's fantastic. And it's good to know that people like yourself can think for yourself and you can actually talk. And you're not under some kind of, like, at least that I know of anyway, you're not under some, gag order where you can't come on YouTube and talk about stuff that is on a lot of people's minds. Like, are we being visited by extraterrestrials? Are they out there?
That may happen Monday morning.
Yeah, it might.
Or tomorrow morning. Who knows?
Tomorrow.
I am summoned into my manager's office tomorrow.
Hey, just so they know, this is good PR. Okay, this is good PR. You're letting this is a good way for. I mean, this is such a global audience, Greg, that we've got people from around the world, and they're going to find out what they think. So
I don't speak for them, none of them, just for me. And it is, after all, a live action role playing exercise. But
don't forget it.
Exactly. So
the aliens made him say that, though.
But in any event, yeah, so it's highly curious that you see these phenomenology, and militaries release some of this stuff, and yet if you talk about it, it's giggle, 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 and look at this guy, he's obviously stupid. Well, actually, we've had anti-gravity research at the Marshall Space Flight Center, and we had a program on it at the Huntsville, Alabama L5 Society last December, and I've posted video from that in 2 videos. I put it in 2 parts on a new website, a new YouTube channel I've started just for those kind of things, and I call it Galactic Gregs. You might put a link to that. Of course, the Green Greg still has most of my videos. I have a lot of stuff on there, but your followers are probably quite interested in Galactic Gregs. And that's Jerry G, 1 G, S, no apostrophe. And Galactic just does the spell with the space in it. But anyway, so and we had a lot of serious propulsion engineers in that room, and the discussion was serious. I mean, there was no giggle factor except for maybe talking about one guy who seemed to have lost his ability to perform his things, which is another story, and that deserved a little giggle. But they did look into his stuff, incidentally. I was talking about the Hutchison effect on that occasion. So, and maybe a couple of your the viewers here have already found my channel and have started to look at it. But in any event, like I said, it's just a conundrum that you have all this phenomenology, and it's just so hush hush and giggle, and you wonder, especially the media seems to be a big force behind instituting the giggle factor. The media, the comedians, if you talk about it, they're the first ones. It's going to go smirk, smirk, smirk. And he talked about this. So, well, we all know they work for the money funders. So you got to wonder what's the origin of that and how all this stuff fits together. See, there's this thing called a Fermi paradox. And one would expect, I've shown pictures in here of big space habitats. And these things really ought to be all over the universe. They should just be so many of them that out there somewhere that you couldn't even see the light from some of the stars. We should be looking up and seeing structure in space. We should be able to tell telltale signs of type 1 and type 2, maybe even type 3 civilizations, but we're not seeing it, Rex. It's really weird. Yet we're seeing strange phenomenology here. That's another conundrum, big conundrum.
Can I ask you a quick question on that? Because
Sure.
The FRB 11202, or that FRB that we keep picking up, do you think that could be a signature of a possible type 2 civilization?
Could be. It well could be. We can't rule that out. We can't rule out that a Moa might not have been an alien artifact. The problem is that there's nothing that we can really definitively point to and say, that's it, that's it. So we had some Tic Tacs flying around. What were they? Whose were they? Where did they come from? There was something there. So why is it that you can't talk about it without it being just absolute giggle factor? See, actually, that is the giggle factor. The giggle factor is that you got all this phenomenology going on and you can't talk about it. That's what's really weird. That's what's strange. That's what's funny. You can't ask a question, go, what was it? What? Why? I mean, there's a lot of people I know that have seen things. and they're not able to say, what did I see? What was it? That's odd. That's highly odd. But in any event, you know, it's not all these people aren't crazy. The FLIR cameras on our DOD or fighter aircraft, they weren't crazy. I hadn't seen, especially when you get it in two different cameras, you know, maybe one camera lost its mind and went crazy. I mean, that's obviously what it is. I think see swamp gas and losing its mind, right? So, and then what about the multiple radars? So there's something strange going on, something highly curious. And it may play into Terence McKenna's observation that he made. And Terence McKenna made this strange statement, and I shared it with you, and I've heard you repeat it a few times, and I've been impressed to hear it coming back, that we are in a symbiotic relationship with something that disguises itself as an alien invasion so as not to upset us. What? Holy smoke. What would be worse than a bunch of space aliens with technology way beyond us coming down here and blasting us away, shackling us up, taking over, invading our world? It's worse than that. What in the world was Terence McKenna talking about? Of course, maybe he was just doing some good drugs. That's a possibility. But that was a very, very strange observation. But you know what, Rex, given the kind of different things we're hearing and seeing, it just may fit. And in fact, it may fit perfectly. We have a jigsaw puzzle in front of us. And some of us get curious enough, in spite of the fact some people want to point a finger and giggle, to say, what are these things? How do these pieces fit together? So to ask the question, what's wrong with asking the question? People that don't ask questions are the dogmatic people. Or a real scientist will at least inquire. It don't mean you got to believe in it, but you should ask at least. I mean, if you've got so many people having sightings, but if it was just people, that would be one thing. But when it's equipment, devices, instruments like radar, FLIRs, those forward-looking infrared cameras mounted on aircraft, when multiple aircraft see them, it's the same way with the Mexican Air Force, and multiple aircraft pick these things up, multiple radars, and you have collaboration between people on the ground, pilots in the air, and radars. What is that? That's some very good swamp gas. That's all I can say. It's a very good, highly intricate, synchronized swamp gas. But, you know, I have to laugh at it just a little bit, because that is the conundrum, and that is what is absurd, that it's the idea that if you discuss that, if you bring that up, there's something wrong with you. Well, if we got that much stuff going on over our heads and we can't talk about it, that's weird. If there's that much stuff going on, what the heck is it? I mean, it's kind of like huge numbers. It's not little, it's not small, yet we can't talk about it. And it's just so, that is bizarre in and of itself more than anything. You couple that with the Fermi paradox, and like you said, we may be getting some hints. There may be some cracks in it, but it's still hard to grab hold of something and say, by golly, I got it. It's right here. This is it. This is it. I got it right here. Maybe we do. And maybe somebody does have it. Well, they could, but they don't talk about it. Maybe things get covered up. But what is it? Why would they do it? If the government is covering all this stuff up, really and truly, why would they? Why would so many governments be in on covering something like this up? Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But it's still a question that begs asking. So one of the stranger things, anything that pertains to something that we don't have good objective evidence of requires a lot of proof. It requires substantial, things to back it up, collaboration, if you will. So the thing is, there's a lot of chaff. There's a lot of knuckleheads out here falsely claiming stuff, walking around, well, I'm this, I'm that, I've been to Venus, I've been to Mars, and I've been to Pluto, and inside the earth. And, you can go out and talk anything you want to. And a lot of people do that. Billy Myers, I don't believe him for 1 second. Some of his photos of his aliens can be shown to be pictures he took off television that he just kind of faded out. And he had taken pictures from Skylab and various other projects and programs. And his ex-wife said a lot of those UFOs that he took pictures of were basically trash can lids and hubcaps and different things he glued together and threw up in the sky. And his ex-wife blew the whistle on him, yet he still got followers. So, you know, there's a lot of people out there who give a bad name to anybody that's interested in something like this. Of course, you know, I could kind of understand when I was a kid, I used to play Bigfoot and scare the crap out of people and get shot at for fun. But that was just entertainment, you know. Go ahead.
Did you see the documentary that Bob Lazar discussed some just blockbuster information on that anti-gravity craft that he saw, like 3 of them that were about 80,000 years old, according to these archaeological digs?
Yeah, that's interesting. I've saw parts of it. I haven't watched the whole program, Rex, but I've seen parts of that.
That could be the missing link right there. Right there could be the missing link.
Could be. Like I said, one time I dreamed I was looking at the brand new pyramids of Giza as I was piloting a UFO flying around there. Hey, you can dream anything, right? It could just be wild fantasy, but who knows? Maybe I was there. So, all my cords get tangled up down here. So, getting back to this whole thing, one of the other things that fits within the context of all this is the abduction phenomenology. If there were just a few people, you know, you could definitely say, well, these are crazy, those are crazy, they're all crazy. And, you know, it may be something in the water, Rex, but here's what's odd. You get guys like our friend, oh, shoot, what's his name, who wrote the book? I could have had it on my top of my tongue here just a minute ago. The guy who wrote the Alien Agenda, you've interviewed him.
John D'Souza?
David Jacobs. David Jacobs.
David Jacobs.
Yeah.
Dr. Jacobs, yes.
Dr. David Jacobs, professor in Pennsylvania with Temple University. He did, you know, I'm getting 5G'd here. They don't want me to discuss things, Rex. But anyway, so the fact is that he did regression hypnosis on numerous people. And it didn't matter. This was before the current notions of what the so-called grays look like or anything came out. And they were all describing the same kind of stuff. And it wasn't kind of stuff that people would have expected based on literature or science fiction or Billy Myers, or Adamski, all these people that were making claims at the time. They were telling a very different story, but they all agreed. And if it was just Dr. Jacobs, you could say this, and some people make this assertion, that what they reported was led by the hypnotist, that he had an influence on them coming up with what they saw. But other people have redone the regression hypnosis, and they report the same things. So we have multiple people performing regression hypnosis on thousands of individuals now, and they all tell the same kind of stories. They talk about the same phenomenologies. That's weird. And at first I read that, well, okay, well, they say these big grays and the big eyes, and maybe an infant don't have good sight, and that's the way he sees his mama, so they're reverting to that. I actually read that one story, but that explained bugs. Yeah, I don't think bugs are going to like your mama. Not a big, giant mantis-looking being or something like that. Yeah, that ain't my mama there, Mr. Pundit. So there's something amiss. And the kind of agenda that he's finding, it's pervasive, it's everywhere, but even that by itself don't make a whole lot of sense. So you get Dr. David Jacobs and others who have participated in the kind of activities that he's participating. Now, people can laugh at this all they want, and that's fine. I'm just telling you that these guys have done regression hypnosis and what they have found. Believe it or not. I don't ask you to believe anything. I'm just telling you what they have found. And let me
add something to that real quick to validate what you're saying, because for people out there that think this is just completely fringe and there's nothing that backs it up, or what backs it up is very little, you know, a couple pictures here, pictures there that could be, Photoshopped, whatever, I get it. Let's go back to these ancient tablets. There's tens of thousands of these tablets that discuss specifically specifically the Anunnaki. You can get into the Vedas that talk about flying crafts. You can talk to many native peoples that have knowledge that has been passed on from generation to generation that talks about the star people. The Hopi talk about these beings, these ant beings that came from the center of the earth, saved them during a Holocaust, and these beings that actually went to the stars after they came out from the center of the earth. You can see petroglyphs from around the world of these ant beings. You can see hieroglyphics in Egypt of these ant beings. So, everybody's like, oh man, I was just a trip, dude. I'm peyote or something. And everybody just had a global trip, and they started writing ant people down and stuff like that. There's these structures, Greg, in Sankawi, New Mexico, that could be tens of thousands of years old. They look like they've been retrofitted by native peoples after the fact, but they look like they were originally built into a mountain like you would think of an ant farm, right? Like you look at an ant farm and the way the ants do their work, it's like the same thing, dude. But you're crazy for talking about it. Exactly. Well, you're crazy for not talking about it.
So we get evidence from archaeology. There's a mythology and the religions of primitive peoples all over the world, things that people see today. And not just a few people all over the world see it. And that's the odd thing. Even when they do regression hypnosis in China or anywhere, they get the same stories, the same stuff. So it's not a cultural thing. And even in the United States, when they were doing it from people from different backgrounds, hi, I'm Sam down here in South Alabama, or whatever else, hi, I'm Mr. Professor X and MIT, whatever. It don't matter. They tell the same stories. So it's not a background thing. It's not a cultural thing. It could be a human thing. But like I said, if you're seeing the vision of your mama from a blurry eye of an infant, why are you seeing these mantid bugs? That don't cut it. So there's a lot of people throw out explanations. Oh, it's just this, it's just that. But they never explain the whole picture. In fact, none of the stuff explains the whole picture. Not anything that any one person is saying or has said to date explains the whole picture. Not even Dr. Jacobs. But you take Dr. Jacobs and what he said, and you take what Cliff has talked about. Now, Cliff has had experiences along the same line of Terence McKenna in his exploration of other realms. And he claims to have encountered the mantids. And okay, that's one guy talking. But the funny, strange thing is what he talks about seems to collaborate the kind of stuff that David Jacobs talks about. They cast them in the same light. And maybe Cliff goes a little bit further. Maybe he elucidates a little further. Maybe he's got a little bit more intimate knowledge. He talks about the vagus nervous system. And he made one other observation I find highly interesting. It may make this stuff fit even better with where I'm going to go with this. Cliff High said that the mantids were not creative. Now, this is LARP session. This is all assuming that these things exist. So we're playing on the axioms, the precepts as set forth by some people like Cliff High, Dr. David Jacobs. So let's just kind of go with that and look at these precepts. If an axiomatic, just thought experiment, let's say, okay, let's say Jacobs is right, and let's say that Cliff High is right. And if you take those axioms, and I'm not saying to do that, I'm just saying if you take those axioms, those precepts as axiomatic, that's the way it is. Axioms are the basis of like mathematics or different things. Once you accept this, then you can do that. That's what it is. So now once you've done that, you have to say, if they're not creative, they did not create their world. They did not create their civilization. They did not create their technology, because to do that, you have to be creative. Now, maybe in a time past they had been, and they were taken over by hive mind, by the great MFers above and beyond, in the other dimensions and worlds or whatever, who decided to take everything over. Maybe there's a queen bee out there somewhere, entity that runs everything. Well, I don't know. This is all LARP session conjecture. But the fact that they're not creative is highly interesting from several standpoints in terms of who they are, where they come from, what's going on. and what you can do about it. They all relate if those things are indeed real under the precepts as established in this LARP session. Now, go ahead.
I'd like to add to the conversation here about Terence McKenna and the comment that he made about how we're in a symbiotic relationship with an extraterrestrial presence that disguises itself to not alarm us, so as not to alarm us. And I also want to talk about the new Star Trek series, the brand new series that's out there, because the past few episodes, you know, I look at the universe as a tarot deck. You know, some people use tarot cards. I'm looking at the universe as a tarot deck, man. Like, because I could see these signs and when it's talking to you and the similarities and synchronicities. And it was talking about these spores that travel through time and space, and it's actually a way for this ship to travel. So they don't even have to put it into warp speed. It's just these spores that can take it anywhere instantly. But there's this different dimension that it goes in and out of. In this different dimension, these beings that are in this dimension are spores. They start out as spores. They can get into people's minds and actually mutate into a physical mass, and then consume that being in a cocoon, and then transfer that being into that other dimension. I mean, it's just fascinating what these things can do. But the Terence McKenna thing, I had that experience that I shared with you off the air, and I've also talked about it on the air, where I felt like I was literally being consumed by some type of Archon, like I was Archon food or something like that. And it was from the Salvia Divinorum, which is totally legal at the state that I did it at, but it was also like taking a sheet of acid for 5 minutes at once. I mean, it was just like, and you couldn't move, dude. It was crazy. I thought I was there forever, but I saw the machine, like Terence McKenna talks about, dude. It was like the unveiling. If you remember the Matrix, where the people in the Matrix, like they just, like when Neo takes the pill and he wakes up in that pod, and then he sees all the other people in the pods around him. That's what it was like, dude. The more I think about it, it was like, holy bleep, I'm in the pod, man. I can see all the other pod people. And then I snapped out of it. But dude, I think Terence McKenna, didn't he also connect the mechanical elves and stuff like that? So imagine this simulation, this quantum physics that connects the dual binary code, the electric universe hypothesis. All of this could explain a machine engulfing us and consuming us, and we are living in this reality, this symbiotic relationship that it disguises itself as sometimes, so that we think there's something more, so that we think the universe is really out there, but it's not out there. It's in here. This whole thing is some type of simulation as this machine continues to feed off of us. And even in the Matrix, it says, you humans don't give the animals the same compassion that the machine gives you, because at least the machine has given you the opportunity to think you can do things and to think that you have a choice in the simulation. Boom, dude. I'm tripping out right now. Hello! In a good way, of course.
You remember some episodes back when I put the whole universe in a funnel, and I talked about how if you sliced it up in time slices, the fact that by relativity, if a kid is sitting over here on a bicycle and you're over here in the same slice of time, then he starts riding toward you, his time slices into the future. And if he goes the other way, it slices into the past. That means all the time has to be here at the same time. And yet, I do believe we have free will, and quantum computing seems to confirm that there is a multiverse. So it's like our mind plays through this vast funnel, this entity, this artifact that we call the universe. As vast as it is, with all its multi-dimensions, our mind plays through it. That's how the power of intention works. Now, is that because the whole thing is artificial, or is it because we're allowed to do that? That may be beyond us, and it may be related to your machine that you've seen. And so that's a whole nother dimension of looking at things. And that's hard to figure it out as to what it may or may not be. And that's a valid thing to ask about, because there are so many conundrums in our universe. How do you have the past and the future existing and still have free will if it's just one single timeline? And I would submit to you that's not the case. And the double slit experiment and some of these other things seem to confirm that, in fact, we do live in a multiverse in which things branches out at every quantum instant of time and almost infinite branch of other universes. And you might have seen that in Interstellar, for example, where he's coming back and he's standing at the precipice and he looks back and he sees all the other versions of him doing the same thing. I thought that was a real neat way to depict that. And there's other people who have described things along that line. Now, of course, that's just Hollywood trying to get to that point. However, so that may still also fit within your machine, or it may not. As I mentioned in the past interviews with you, that if you had achieved infinity, if you're alive for 1 trillion years, you've done everything, you know everything, you've seen everything, you're going to be bored out of your skull, especially if you're the great deity and you know what everything that can be known. Some knowing everything and having done everything and having nothing new to discover for trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions a year, Rex, that'd be awful. It might be that they would create this infinite little artifact called the universe and just jump into it, fracture the consciousness and move into it and explore and have a good time. It's like a game, an erector set. Now, the Gnostic people think the universe is bad or evil. Look, puppies are nice and warm, and kitty cats are nice to pet, and birds sing beautifully. The sky is beautiful to look at. I can't buy that the whole universe is evil. Now, maybe we are in a bad neighborhood. That may be the answer. And maybe our neighborhood's been taken over by a warlord, and maybe the warlord, he may be Enki or Stinky or whatever, and maybe this warlord has his own desires, and he keeps us inside his game set. And maybe he's got his own machine that he plugs our souls into, and our bodies or whatever, and harvest energy and fear or whatever they feed off of. There's a lot of claims about those things. But here's where I want to go with this. There are some interesting intersections of ideas. You had an individual on your program by the name of Robert Stanley. Robert Stanley made the assertion that Enki was just a regular good old everyday good old boy Anunnaki god, if you will. Except, he played a hand in creating us, and he saved us from Enlil, apparently, when Enlil got tired of us because we were going off the deep end and tried to wipe us out with a flood. And interestingly, Enlil was all concerned about what the greater gods would think about it, which said he wasn't one of the truly gods with a capital G. So I kind of think the Anunnaki were a lot like people, just a little further along down the line. In fact, they may have originated on Earth. They were interbred with people. They certainly had their eyes and designs upon people in many ways. Enki, some of his own writings, he was a sporty soul, if you know what I mean.
Enki would like to get wasted, make people, and have sex.
Exactly.
That's what he did.
Bingo. That's what I'm talking about. He was a horny dude. But that said, he was a horny guy. Of course, they all had their horns or the tip,
That's what the horn stands for. Hello.
In any event, so much for being serious here, Rex. We got off.
We needed that.
In any event, so Stanley said that Enki went into some forbidden zone. Someplace he shouldn't have gone, but he thought he was immune. You know how kids are. They think nothing's going to bother them. They're immune. They're immortal. Even the immortal may think they're immortal when they're really and truly not. You know what I mean? So he claims he went through something, and he said it fractured his mind. And he said out of the mind of Enki came Archons. Essentially, Enki and his crew created the Archons, but they were separate. And they attacked them and infested them.
Where was this? This specific you're talking about?
This is something, I think now Robert Stanley may have said this on another channel, but he made the claim.
Okay, this is what you're talking about, what Robert was saying. Okay.
He made the claim. I've watched him on a couple of different channels, including Coast to Coast, by the way. He made the claim that the Archons were created by Enki, but they're like separate entities. They fractured and split off, and they were crazy, and they drove him and his entire crew insane. They made him and his crew mentally ill, insane. They're like separate spirits. and they're evil, wicked spirits. Whereas Enki actually had a physical body. Now he said, you know, he's the man, according to the interviews, he goes by the man who met Enki and lived to tell about it. But he says that Enki is in fact Satan. Now I've had my suspicions that all these phenomenology that we're seeing in the skies has certain traits that equate to being demonic, and so have some of my other friends. But it may not be demons as in spiritual demons. I mean, the grays have bodies. You could grab them. In fact, the angels had bodies. Jacob wrestled with an angel and was renamed Israel, for he who wrestles with an angel, right? So they could walk amongst you. The men of Sodom and Gomorrah, they wanted to know the angels. Yeah, they were probably wanting to bite off more than they could chew on, because they're said to be able to kill thousands of people in a snap of a finger. So you don't want to know an angel like that. But anyway, so powerful individuals, whatever they are, powerful individuals. So after watching, I'm making the sign without even realizing it. People are going to be talking about that.
I know, it's like you have to stand like this and don't do anything different, or they might call you a Luciferian. You know, so a lot of times I'm just talking and my hands are, you know, like, dude, you're give the devil sign. Oh my gosh. So
I know.
Satan, you know what Satan actually means? It means the adversary. So the adversary to what? You know, and Enki, I've done a lot of research on Enki also. I've been thinking a lot about Enki. Even the past few days, my mind has been attempting to be, you know, wrap around, because I've been reading these ancient Sumerian tablets. Like recently I just read the Lugalbanda and the Anzud bird from Oxford translated Sumerian tablet.
Right.
Excellent story. And it talked about this bird being that was huge. And I think it's talking about a dragon, by the way it described its talons, by the way that it described its size, by the way that it described its intelligence. It sounds identical to a dragon in something like The Hobbit, as an example, an intelligent being. And what's interesting is this dragon, this Anzud bird, was so powerful that when it screamed because it thought its child, its birdling was taken, it specifically said the Anuna gods
hid in the crevices.
Like ants. It even used the term ants. So then I'm thinking to myself, what if long time ago, dragons, you know, we find all these fossils of dinosaurs. Maybe there was a small percentage of these dinosaurs that were very intelligent, and there were battles. There's too many tablets to deny it. There's too many artifacts that have been uncovered. There's too many megaliths, these incredible structures. They're tens of thousands of years old. We can't put the blocks together now. And they could be a combination of ETs, but they could also be a combination of our ancient ancestors and what they were capable of. And that's why I'm still torn on, you know, I love Cliff, and I look, you know, I look at him like my uncle. And the 5G stuff that he talks about, and the mantis invasion that he talks about. But as I've shared with you, I don't think they're all bad, man. I think that there's got to be these like opposing factions. I mean, what if they had a big part in our genetics hundreds of thousands of years ago? When they're depicted in these petroglyphs, these ant beings as the ones that saved the human race, what if they come around at certain times to help people, and there's opposing factions, and now you've got these rogue factions like Daryl Sims talks about, where there's this, he literally has talked about this huge ship that isn't far from Earth, and these beings are about 15 years ahead of us in technologies, and they're cloning all sorts of beings, and they're doing abductions and implants, etc.
All right, so let's go back to that. Why are they cloning? Daryl Sims says they're cloning. Dr. David Jacobs says they're cloning. All these people who've gone through the regression hypnosis talk about the clones. I believe Cliff High has talked about the clones. And yet, think about this. We're seeing a lot of suggestive evidence that seems to indicate that the sun may have a regular cycle of micronovas, or at least giant superflares. And Oh, he was the remote viewer. He talked about the kill shot. Colonel Ed Dames. Ed Dames. He saw
He's
this
been talking about that kill shot for a long time, man.
Yeah, I would be ignoring him by now, except he predicted Fukushima, and he didn't post it. He was on Japanese television telling them this was going to happen before it happened. So he's on video. You know, a lot of people will, I said that was going to happen, and somebody collaborates. So, well, you don't know. But he was actually on television talking about that. And so that means, you know, you got to kind of think about him a little bit. But boy, he's been talking about that kill shot for a long time. But he will tell you he can't put a time date on it. Let's not give him that credit. So, and when you go in the book of Revelations in the Bible, it talks about the sun frying a third of everything on the earth. Just absolutely frying it by heat. And I've got a friend who's got a book about, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it postulated that the pyramids and a lot of the caves were dug because, and this was written years ago, because the sun would go into outburst, it would fry sections of the earth, and people were trying to get away from it. And that may fit with what Doug Vogt's talking about. Doug Vogt is one of the guys talking about the micronova cycles, and he claims that it's on a little bit better than the 12,000 year cycle. I think 12,000, maybe 46. I don't remember exactly what he says, but in fact, I think I am a little bit off, because I believe what he's actually saying is in the year 2046, he's expecting that's when it's going to hit, and we're going to get blasted so bad it's going to really just kick the can of our planet. That it would be close to an extinction level event. It would be extremely bad. It would scour our civilization away, and to survive this would be an extreme challenge. Now, obviously, it's doable. We're here. We're all descendants of survivals and survivalists, or people that survive. And all the creatures and plants and everything on this earth, if these things happen, are survivors. We do know things have happened. We don't know exactly what they are. We do know there's the Carolina Bays, which is the evidence of something that hit on that Laurentide ice sheet, a period that equates to the initiation of the Younger Dryas. Some people say, oh, well, there's no crater, it couldn't have been. Excuse me, the ice sheet was 2 miles thick, and we had air burst even over Tunguska. That didn't hit the ground and leave a crater, because the penetration of an object through the atmosphere depends on the strength of the atom exceeding the pressure that's built up on it as it's going through the atmosphere. If it don't have the strength to exceed that pressure, like an iron meteorite, it's going to blow up in the atmosphere. And comets have essentially no strength; they're fluff balls. So it's entirely possible that a comet blew up in the atmosphere or hit the ice sheet and stuff scattered out. We do know that some piece of something hit in Greenland. We now have found a crater, and now there's another crater in Greenland. So there's been things hit the Earth. Were they part of an expansion shell from a supernova? I mean, not supernova. No, we've not had a supernova. Excuse me, a micronova. The one thing that does lend some credence to the micronova theory, probably to me the best smoking gun, that is there's two things: the periodicity and the fact that there's fissile tracks in muscovite minerals and the glass beads that come back from the moon that have highly radioactive particles that penetrated them. That suggests some kind of nuclear type event. And a micronova would be a nuclear type event. The energies would be at such a level that it would cause atoms to fuse and all kind of nuclear reactions within the matter being ejected. That's how we know we get our heaviest elements is from supernovas. Uranium, gold, they were produced in a supernova. Iron is believed to be produced even with a fusion within the star, if you believe in fusion. I know that may not comport with electric universe ideas, but whatever the case is, it takes a lot to produce iron and things like that. Now, all that said, where this goes is this. If we are on the tap to get the kicked out of us, I mean, if something is just about to kick this world really hard, scour it clean, wipe it out almost, why in the world would a alien race be coming here, alien race, demon race, whatever, why would it come here with the objective to produce thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of clones to come down here and take over this planet. I think that makes no walking around sense whatsoever. Why go through such a great effort? Jacob said they've been doing this for 70 years. Of course, the phenomenology that sounds like the abduction phenomenology sounds to me like the same phenomenology that goes back medieval times and earlier, the succubus and the incubus and other phenomena. They sound exactly the same, the things described. A lot of the elements of George Washington's vision sounds like what people experience in an abduction.
Will you talk about that for a minute? You were reading my mind literally. I was hoping you were going to bring that up.
Well,
and also, do you think he could be Dumazid, the reincarnation of Dumazid, George Washington? I do.
Don't you remember my Santa Claus LARP session?
Oh, yeah. Hey, man.
Are you accusing me of being George Washington?
Conspiracy scientist here. Conspiracy scientist.
There we go. So, yes. And you know I am an Anunnaki. You fingered me out on that, Rex.
I think I was the first one to figure that out, and I actually am kind of happy about that because, I mean, it's obvious now. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out. Hello!
And your audience fingered me as Santa Claus a long time ago, and, well, you know, I just showed how all that connects up from Dumazid through Aphaetus and Vulcan to Odin and Santa Claus. Well,
we're in a simulation, dude.
It's a simulation. There you go. So, in any event, at least this LARP session's a simulation and a simulation. But he saw a veil, like a green veil, which is a phenomenology that some people I'm aware of have seen. And he had these dark angels that visited him. And he called them dark angels. Were they grays? Were they mantids? What's a dark angel? Most people see angels and they describe them being light. Or maybe he had just been politically correct. I don't know, you know. Most everything got to be just bright light. But anyway, he was visited by these dark angels. They showed him the future of America. Now, maybe somebody wrote this down later, but that's a pretty interesting fantasy if they wrote it down and described it the way they did, because a lot of the phenomenology described in that experience fits with the abduction phenomenology and things that some people have experienced and see. Including there's buzzing sounds, popping sounds, a lot of other aspects of the phenomenology of an alien abduction or whatever it is abduction. But anyway, so it kind of got us off track a little bit, but that is interesting. But the thing is, it goes way back. So why would a civilization come here and spend so much time and so much effort and hide out in secrecy for so long and develop this gigantic clone army, hybrid army, whatever, with the objective to take over a planet that's about to get shit kicked to the end of the universe? I mean, pardon my Anglo-Saxon here. You know, I am a worm farmer. I shovel that stuff all the time. But we're about to get kicked, according to Douglas Vogt and many other people. And if it's not that, we got Yellowstone building up, all kind of things going on right now. This isn't the ideal real estate to be taken over at this point in time, not from a real estate purpose. But maybe they're not here for that, Rex. Maybe that's not why they're here. Maybe that's not why maybe the objective, and this may go back to McKenna, Terrence McKenna. Because, you know, if you think about it, what would it really be after? I've already shown you can build real estate in space, any kind of real estate you want, in vast quantities far beyond the planet. There's resources in space, all the elements you want, the gold's out there. Why the Anunnaki would come here to get gold? The asteroids, platinum group asteroids are loaded with it. There's so much out there. Why would you come here to get it?
We're the gold. Our souls are the gold. Our emotions, our energy, and we're the rechargeable batteries. That's why they need us. They need us more than we need them, and they want us to think that we need them more than they need us.
And therein lies the strength if we understand this. Bingo. Now we're starting to get somewhere. We're starting to jump ahead a little bit. I'm still painting the picture. We're going there. They need us more than we need them. They're not here for all that other stuff. That's part of the cover story. They never were here to come after gold. They were never here to come after our assets and resources on this planet. They're here for us. Now, there's maybe two reasons for that. One, I elucidated.
I think, but don't you think, real quick, because I know people are already thinking this, and so am I. They're here for the resources too. I mean, everything, this earth is a farm of beautiful resources. I mean, they want the gold, they want the silver. That's legit. But the real gold standard is our soul. Now, that's my thought. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Look at the 250,000-year-old gold mines in Africa.
Well, maybe just since they were here, they went ahead and did it. But I don't think that's why they came here. Now,
right. I would agree.
Are you going to take advantage of it? Sure. You're already here. The stuff's here. Why not? But I don't think that's why they came here per se.
Me neither.
So, yeah, we are the objective. It is us. They have come for us. And why do they come for? Now, maybe that we're the, once upon a time I said in one of the first interviews I had with you, that maybe we're the aphids and they're the ants. And that would kind of fit with Terrence McKenna too. They just feed off our emotions, our energies, but there may be more to it than that. Now, in the precepts of the LARP session and why they would be coming up with all these hybrids in a situation like this, and why, we go back to Robert Stanley. Robert Stanley also said that Enki, Satan, was actually trying to build an army, that he was deficient. He only got a third of the angels that sided with him, and that he's really, truly trying to build an army to attack Enlil in Orion. So that his objective is to launch an attack on Enlil from Earth. And that his purpose for being here is to build his army, hybrid army, clone army, human army, combination, all the above army. And that if you take that to be what it might be, if that's the case, then maybe he and his minions have influenced the powers that be in our world, the money funders, if you will, that, hey, we're on your side, but you got to help us. We'll help you get more power, but let's keep this quiet while we do blah, 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 and we'll let you play your game, play along with us, and you'll all get ahead. And so maybe they're setting up a world construct where they can totally control us, and if you don't fit and go along, they kick you out. Maybe that's why we got such a controlled regime being set up in our world today. Maybe. Of course, again, this is a LARP session, and this is conjecture based on precepts of these other things having some credibility. Whether they do or not, I'm not making any claim of anything like that. I'm just I'm going through a thought experiment within the LARP. So now that does fit with the idea of why would you go through such trouble to create such a vast number of hybrids, and whose job apparently will be to corral us, thin us, or do whatever they're going to do, use us. But it also collaborates. See, all this, anything you take, if you're going to entertain it all, it needs to collaborate with something else. And we've got some collaboration between disparate methodologies like those from Cliff High and Dr. David Jacobs and his colleagues who do the reverse hypnosis. They find a lot of the same stuff. But the objective of creating all these hybrids don't make walking around sense in the grand scheme of things. But that fits better with Stewart. Let me get a name. I'm getting brain lock here again. But anyway, the man who saw Enki. Now, Stanley. Thank you, Stanley. So, if there's one other thing that tells a similar tell. Now, Stanley talked about Archons. Let's see. Let me do a share here. Can I do a share?
What do you want to share?
I want to share a verse out of Revelations.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure, absolutely.
Okay, hang on. So,
the mark of the beast, the number of man, 6 threefold. An atom is 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. So maybe it's a science essay.
All right, so I'm trying to pull this up. Can you see it, Rex?
Yes, sir. The 6th angel.
Yes. The 6th angel poured out his bowl in the great river Euphrates, and the river dried up to prepare the way for the kings of the east. And then I saw 3 impure spirits that looked like frogs that came out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast and out of the mouth of the false prophet. Now that actually correlates to what Robert Stanley said about Enki being possessed by Archons. We tend to think of Satan as being a demon, but according to the Bible, Satan is possessed by demons. Most people in the Christian faith and Judeo-Christian world don't talk about that or think about that. But if you go to Revelations, the book of Christianity, you will read here that the devil is possessed by these demons. He is demon possessed, archon possessed, whatever you want to call them. This very much matches what Stanley said. And furthermore, what's really crazy, it even matches even further if you go down here a little bit farther. Whoop, we got ads popping up. So I can kill this. It gets even better. These demonic spirits, it says, they are demonic spirits that perform signs, and they go out to the kings of the whole world and gather them together for the battle on the great day of God Almighty. So they basically have set the whole world up to be an army to attack God, and that's the reason for their regime that they create. You know, what do you call it? The regime of the beast, the New World Order, or whatever you think that may be. According to the book of Revelations, within this LARP session, it sounds like the whole purpose there is to create a demon army, an army with people to join with them to fight God, which fits in many ways with what Robert Stanley was telling us about Enki being demon possessed by Archons. And his whole objective here was to create a clone army, a human army, a hybrid army to go attack Enlil in Orion. They're very close, very similar stories. Now, I don't know, maybe it's just some good storytelling, Rex, but it's kind of interesting how this book written 2,000 years ago dovetails so well with the kind of stuff that Robert Stanley was seeing, which can help explain stuff that all these other people are seeing that just don't make walking around sense. The whole idea that there would be somebody coming here to, the whole idea that somebody is coming here to create and go through extreme great effort, spend decades and decades creating beings to take over this world when the whole world is about to get blasted to bits, don't make sense. There you go. There's your buddy. You saw that guy, didn't you?
Well, that's what I want to talk about is when I had that experience, I felt like I literally saw Yah the Baoth. And I've studied the Gnostic texts extensively, and I'm fascinated with them. I certainly don't think that all humans are bad. I don't think that the mother of all demons is matter, like it describes in the Secret Book of John. Secret Book of John also says that the human body is composed and created by 365 demons and angels. And all these numbers are referring to time. They're talking about the days in the year. They're talking about the time matrix that we're in. But Yah the Baoth, I think, is most likely Enki. But then when you read about the creation of Yah the Baoth from Sophia, I can't find any Sumerian texts that would correlate that same storyline. And these came after that. So it's very difficult to say that they're the same being. Now, also, when you get into Enki and Enlil and Satan and God Almighty, well, is God Almighty in Revelation describing the true God Almighty, or is Revelation in the Bible describing Enlil or describing the other counterpart of the adversary, which could be Enki or just another player? Because the Anunnaki, the Elohim, the gods created man in their image. These texts have been translated, and this Bible is created to think that you're believing in a monotheistic God, whereas the Bible is really a multitude of stories that have been plagiarized for thousands of years, and it's describing tons of different deities from around the world, and then they're attempting to say it's just one God, and then it's got his adversary. I
find it interesting that Enlil feared the greater God when he put the flood upon man. That's what's written in the Sumerian text. I'm just quoting from that. Take it for what you will. I'm not saying that I believe it, true or false or whatever. I'm just making the observation of what was written. So I don't want anybody to come, well, Greg said this, Greg believes that, Greg believes that. I don't believe anything. Not, you know, I'm just asking questions. I'm trying to put this jigsaw puzzle together to see if it fits, what fits. And so if this is the universe, Enel and Enki and all these characters are inside of it. They exist at points in time and space. I refer to that as a point source being. We're point source beings. The creator of the universe, however, is somewhere out here. Not me looking at it. There it is. Wow, it's kind of a nice little cube. It's got all kind of stuff going on in here. Holy smoke. Look at all this stuff. So even, and it's kind of neat to take this idea of a multiverse, you know, a universe that's, you know, hundreds of light years across, you know, hundreds of billions of light years across, maybe, with trillions and trillions of dimensions and just billions and billions of galaxies in each one and billions of stars in each galaxy, and with all kind of time splits and almost infinitive different dimensions and directions. But according to that little kid riding a bicycle, it's all got to fit together into a single entity. It's a thing, an artifact, from the beginning to the end, which may just loop back around at some point in some fashion, but it is all a thing, an entity. If you're big enough and standing outside, using an analogy of this little bitty funnel, might be just perfect to the creator God, creator, or whatever. You don't have to accept the notion there's a creator God, but, you know, I find our universe to be highly interesting in how everything balances out. And what speaks of a creator to God to me is this. We are spiritual beings living in physical bodies in a physical universe. Why do we as spiritual beings exist here? See, that's one of those conundrums that is probably even greater than the Fermi paradox in my mind. And you could explain things mechanicalistically to say that we could be humans with biology that functions and all these things happening that do not require a spirit. So you could have a physical existence in a physical universe and be like machines and not have a spirit. But you and I have had experiences and reasons to know and understand that we do have spirits. Knowing that we have a spirit introduces the great paradox of why are we here as spiritual beings in this physical universe. It may go back to what I said. Maybe at some point when you know all there is to know, you just can't stand it anymore. It's like, let me in. So maybe and when you go through all the little things of ascension to get out of this universe, and then you get out, you look back and go, oh, heck no, I've been here before. Let me back, let me back. So that may be, that may be what it boils down to, Rex. But somehow I do think we got in a bad neighborhood, it seems. And maybe that's because Enki, Satan, is the prince of this world. The Christians definitely believe that. And it seems to be, you know, Robert Stanley would confirm that. And the Sumerian text would not argue with that. So it may be the case. And so it may be that the grays and the mantids are just instruments created by a limited number of Anunnaki beings to gain control, but they couldn't use enough of them and they weren't similar enough to us to woo us around. They had to create something far more like us. And so they've started making hybrids, and the job of the hybrids will be to come down here and lure us into whatever they want us to do. And that might be their little clone army. Of course, this is LARP session talk now, entirely LARP session talk. Maybe they're here to lure us into their army to go off and do dastardly deeds somewhere. Maybe. You know, that would kind of fit within all these precepts within the context of this LARP session as to being a possible objective that might make it all fit and make sense. Maybe. I'm just saying. So if that's the case, Robert Stanley might be right, Cliff might be right, David Jacobs might be right, but David Jacobs and Cliff's explanations by themselves in the context of a micronova or other things that could come upon this world, Yellowstone, Long Valley calderic explosions, and other good happy events that might be on the precipice of happening. It just don't make walking around sense that the objective would be to take over this world. And that would also fit with Terrence McKenna. You know, why would they disguise themselves as an alien invasion? You know, I got to say, well, why the heck would you want to invade this place in the first place? you know, knowing what we know now. So in the precepts of this LARP session, then maybe we are being taken over to be turned into mind-numbing robots to go off and be the drone clone army. They want to put the neural lace in our heads and enlist us, and we go out and do whatever they want. They have control over us. Then we are part of the hive mind. They would like to put us in the hive, control us. And there could be a lot of reasons, a lot of different entities would want to put us in the hive. And one of the things I mentioned before, we're free-range individuals, and free-range individuals may be a dangerous thing, especially if you have a specific agenda, especially if you have a control agenda. We got to control everything. I got to take over. I got to run this. This is my world, and I got to run it all. If that's the way you think, then you definitely don't like free-range individuals that have an ever escalating degree of knowledge and technology at their disposals. You wouldn't want that. But I want that. I don't accept that I got to be taken over a bunch of bugs, Rex. You know, if this is true, and within the precepts established, I say we can kick their cans in easily. Now, there are certain things that are said about them. They're said that they're not creative. It's said they have a hive mind. And of course they have a hive mind. They have to be controlled. But now this is all just going by what is claimed. I'm not saying any of this is true. I'm just telling you what they have reported. Dr. David Jacobs claims, Cliff said that they had trouble with the hybrids because they would get emotional and they would have to calm them down. If that's true, that means they still got something of a nervous system and can feel. See, the cool thing about mammalian creatures is we have empathy more than other creatures. You know, you take your cat, you take your dog, man, those things love you unconditionally, and they love to be petted, and they can look at you with loving eyes. And we just identify automatically as small furry creatures, maybe because sometime in the past we were a small furry creature. But we just identify with other mammals, and other mammals identify with us and each other to a large degree. And birds actually do this to some degree too. Well, they're also warm-blooded, so this may be a characteristic of warm-blooded creatures: is empathy, love, feelings, connection. Mantids don't have that. Cliff told us they have no feelings. They have no creativity, and we know that that means they have no soul. And we already knew that the Greys didn't have any soul, so they're all just robotic bugs, all of them, just robotic bugs. It's just that the mantids have an exoskeleton, and the Greys have some weird skin which serves as their stomach lining. You basically paint their nutrients on because they didn't want to waste putting intestines in them, and then they exude their waste back out through their skin. That's pretty darn gross to eat and exude your waste the same way. But it also means their skin is very fragile. Also, notice they prefer to be in the dark. Obviously, they don't like bright light and sun. They have big eyes for being able to see in the dark. They're well adapted to dark. There's not a lot of reports of them running around out in the bright sunlight, at least not for any extended period of time. They like to come 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock to do their dastardly deeds according to those that say they do those things. So if you take all that into context, there's ways to control them. If they have a hive mind, that says they have a common mode failure point. That's their comm system. To have a hive mind, you have to have a comm system. Now, maybe they have two types of comm. They may be somewhat psychic, but they have to be controlled. So they can't have too much of this ability. To be controlled is probably a technological thing, but they may be psychic through their DNA. The DNA molecule, Rex, is 2 nanometers in diameter if you take the heliots. And Russians and others have said that there's light that comes in and out of the DNA molecule. It's highly coherent like a laser, but at 2 nanometers, nano, maybe 2 nanos for it, that is, and that's funny, that is the high frequency ultraviolet light. It is ultraviolet light. So you might be able to totally overpower their psychic DNA type comm by just shining ultraviolet light brightly. And that might interfere with that aspect of the comm system. Now, It so happens that I think the DNA is probably our key to the Chicago record, because if you get an organ transplant from another person, you acquire their likes and aspects of their personality. I mean, there's no brain cells being transplanted. How does that happen? It don't make sense. It's almost like you pick up memories and personality traits from the person you get the organ from. And the more central it is to your core, the more that's the case, especially heart transplants. So it's like, wow. It's like you're getting a piece of this person's soul. You're tapped into their Akashic record. And family members are more able to understand if something bad goes, like your mother, your father, if something happens to you, they know it. You know it with your kids. You can feel it. So that's odd. Now, all that said, that is maybe one leg of their transmission comm system. But I think that would be a poor way to exert control. They have to be under control to be in a hive. So I think that is an actual technological communication system that probably uses a radio wave. Now, it's alleged that there were devices that crashed in Roswell and other places, flying saucers, if you will. It was alleged, furthermore, that these things crashed because they were hit by the new radar systems that we were experimenting with, new high-powered radars. And some people have alleged that interfered with their guidance systems. Yet people like Bob Lazar, didn't he say they did it all with their mind? They control these devices with their mind? Oh, it did interfere with their guidance systems. You hit them right in the hive mind. We hit their comm system and took them down. So now maybe we made some agreement that we wouldn't hit them with certain frequencies. So that was in the microwave range. Maybe they increased their microwave frequency range to have a higher baud rate so they could communicate more. Maybe they went to 5G. They stepped it up. You can only step it up. The infrared is as high as you can go and still be radio wrecks. And light is line of sight. And the more higher frequency you go in RF, the more line of sight you get. So we can dial all the RF frequencies, Rex. We can put them out, and we can put them out high powered. So the thing is, we can jam the hive mind. And what happens when you jam their minds? They crash. You want to get your flying saucer, Rex?
I actually have a jetpack that's connected to spore technology, so I've been very fortunate in that regards to the millimeter waves and the 5G. And you know, it's interesting, Greg, and man, I'll tell you, the conversations that we have are very powerful. We've got a great audience. People are, saying nothing but good things. And I would like to let people know Greg does have 2 YouTube channels. So if you go to, I've got both his YouTube channels in the video description box. He has Cosmic Greg's YouTube channel. And then also,
Greg's.
What is it?
Galactic Greg's.
I'm sorry, Galactic. Let me change that. Galactic Greg's.
Yeah, I like to alliterate. I use alliteration. There's Green Greg's and there's Galactic Greg's.
Yeah, that sounds better. Galactic Greg's and Green Greg's and Galactic Green. That's the best dispensary on the planet that's not on the planet. It's got some intergalactic connection. I would like to say this also, folks. There's for those of you out there that like this type of information, that enjoy the fringe type of alternative information. Maybe you've got the main channels. Maybe you've got 5,000 channels and you can't find anything to watch. You should definitely check out Gaia.com/Rex. So for 99 cents, you can try this out, get access to thousands of different podcasts and videos, from spirituality to ancient aliens to alternative energies. And it's really cool. So that way you've got something to watch in case I'm not doing a live show, in case you've watched all of Greg's podcasts. And let's do this. Let's do another show soon. And also, I want to let everybody know that Greg will be at the conference that's going to be off the hook May 18th and 19th at the Marriott Tech Center in Denver, Colorado. It's going to be just on the outskirts of Denver. So you can also check out the amazing airport that has extraterrestrials underground that's connected to a worldwide network. Do you want to hear something kind of spooky about Lucifer real quick? Greg, I don't know if you do this or not, but Lucifer is Lucifer, the blue horse that has the red eyes that's hanging out.
Oh, yeah. I know you're talking about. I know him. I've seen him.
Okay. Yeah. So
Denver Airport.
Lucifer, man. I mean, you don't want to get on Lucifer's bad side because
he killed his creator. Man, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
He did.
The creator was making the the sculptor that made Lucifer was working on Lucifer, and part of that horse fell on him, like severed an artery. He bled to death. Well, that's horrible. And what's even more horrible, and well, not more horrible, definitely not more horrible, but what adds to the horrid side of that, in my opinion, is at the airport when they were doing remodeling at the airport. I thought this was really a lack of class, in my opinion. They were mocking how people thought that not only was there an underground base underneath the airport and that it was a part of a New World Order society that was controlling the world, but also that Lucifer was possessed. So I get all the other stuff, but don't you think they could have left out that last part? I mean, I think that was kind of
his eyes lit up. You know, his eyes shine. You know, it's crazy.
They do, man. You get out there, like, that's what you get greeted.
Why do they do that? That's weird. Hey, can I know? Can I go just a little bit further with where I was going with this?
Yeah, let's do it. Absolutely.
So you can bring them down, and maybe then you could hotwire their devices, since we're not on a hive mind to fly them. I think I figured out how to hotwire them. But anyway, all that aside, go back to the mothership. Now, if you encounter mantids, they may look big, bad, and ugly, but they got this exoskeleton, Rex, and the exoskeletons are made out of chitin. And chitin is a substance that you know, it makes them hard on the outside, and so you think they're armored. But I got to tell you what makes chitin just come apart. Soapy water. One of the hardest little bugs in the world out here. See, I'm a gardener. As a gardener, this is something I know. I know that soapy water kills stink bugs, squash bugs, and they're hard little suckers. But what happens is it causes their chitin to start dissolving. Probably stops up their breathing holes and all kind of stuff, and exposes their skin. And they die fast when you spray them directly. You got to spray it directly on the soapy water. So I could see having a backpack, Rex, with a little antenna sticking up with Wi-Fi, you know, putting out 5G, have on my little, you know, LeakCon hat, and have a backpack pressure washer sprayer with soapy water with a little capsaicin. Hey, I grow ghost peppers. I can squeeze the peppers and make pepper juice. So have some capsaicin, some soapy water, and man, they'd be in trouble, Rex, because they couldn't handle it. And maybe have a big UV light, you know, to shine. They couldn't think, they couldn't move, and they couldn't stand up to it. So if you want to stop a bug, that's the way to do it. If the mantids may look big, bad, and awful, but if you're equipped right, you can take them right out, Rex. You know, I ain't scared of no bug. Hey, in fact, Rex, when I was a kid, I must have been insane. My best friend and I used to like to it was like a challenge. We were boys, you know, and boys are crazy by definition. We liked to bug wasp because wasp had the capacity to sting you. They were a worthy opponent to bug. So we would take a wasp nest and we'd just agitate them all year long until they got real big, and then we'd attack it and kill it. You know, it's only after they got big, but we'd agitate them all along just to keep them mean and mad, you know. And one summer we had this well house, Rex. I grew up in the farm. We had a well house, and I mean, it was covered with wasp nest inside. The ceiling, the walls, everywhere was wasp nest, Rex. I have never even imagined you could have that many wasp nests in one place. And oh my God, we saw that and we just like freaked out, like, wow, look at this. And you know, if I had a kid that was thinking this way, I'd probably kill him before the wasp did, you know. I'm glad my parents didn't know this, and I would never, when I was growing up, tell my kids, when my kids were growing up, I would never tell them the stuff I used to do because I was afraid they'd try it. It's just, no, don't do what I did. I ain't gonna tell you nothing. But we we each got us a section of well pipe, which is a plastic pipe, about, you know, maybe 3 foot long, black plastic pipe to go down in the well shaft to pump water up, suck it up when you run the pump. So we each had a section of that, kind of like a club. We went in that well house, and there was a spigot in there with a garden hose, turned it on with a spray nozzle. Now, my friend, his name was Stephen Henson. We were back to back, and we fought those wasps with a spray nozzle and 2 hoses, a whole house surrounded by a wasp nest inside. Rex, we killed every single wasp in the well house, and neither one of us got stung a single time. We had each other's backs. Literally, we had each other's backs. Now, you wouldn't want to have done that with just anybody, but I knew him. He knew me. I trusted him. He trusted me. We had each other's backs, and we went in there and we did battle. So, hey, I ain't scared of no bugs.
It's like a combination of Ghostbusters and Men in Black.
Bingo.
That line right there. I like that. I ain't afraid of no bugs. And on that note, folks, don't try that at home.
No.
He's just telling you his experience.
Anaphylactic shock. You know, you can die from a few stings of a wasp. We were nuts. But maybe, I've always thought, Rex, all my life I was in training for some big thing. Everything, all these things add towards something. All my societies that I've run, the volunteer groups I've been involved with, the gardening, the rocketry, the woodsmanship growing up in the woods, fighting wasps, whatever it may be. Dealing with Congress, not much different. Rex, I kind of think maybe I'm being trained for something. I don't know what it is I'm supposed to be when I grow up, but I'm being trained for something.
Well, that's interesting. And the wasp thing is interesting. And I've got a symbiotic relationship going on right now with wasps. Just about a year and a half ago, what is it called? A tarantula hawk. A tarantula hawk.
Oh, okay.
In my van while I was driving, and it just like hung out there on the seat. It was so wild, and I'd never seen one before. I took a picture of it, did a podcast on it, and then it hung out for a few minutes. Then I let it go. But then like there was this wasp that kept coming into my old office in San Antonio, like this specialty type of wasp, and it would just come in and go, and it would like land next to me, and it would just hang out there, and then I'd like I'd just kind of go like this with my hand, and it'd go away, and then like fly on the computer and hang out there. This thing was hanging out there for days or weeks, man. And I'll tell you,
you were under surveillance, Rex.
I know. DARPA. It's DARPA's wasp. Like,
yes, track him. All right. He is crazy. Let him go.
Oh man, you gotta love it. You gotta love it, folks. This is a LARP session.
LARP session, absolutely. Live action role play, just doing some thought experiments based on precepts of what a lot of other people have claimed in other LARP sessions.
And on a side note, LARP time. Do you have a LARP on yet? Hello. Be excellent to each other, everybody. Subscribe to Greg's YouTube channels. I've got the links in the video description box. I will be back in a little while. We've got more information to bring to the table. And then, of course, as Arnold Schwarzenegger says, I'll be back.
I'll be back.
That's even better.
Or Beethoven.
Yeah, Beethoven. Wait, huh? Right on, man. Did you know you're recording?
Huh?
You're recording. Did you know that?
Oh. All right.
Just so you know.
Let me stop it. Were we done?
Yeah, we're done.
Still live.